Under the moonlight, Oak Island lies quiet, a nondescript oval of land silhouetted against Nova Scotia's Mahone Bay. It looks like any other patch of rocky shoreline and scruffy pines. Yet for over 2 centuries, this little island has whispered promises of fortune and doom to all who come near. There is an air of mystery here. It clings to the crooked oaks and wafts through the coastal fog. Some say you can feel it, an unsettling sense that beneath your feet something monumental is hidden, waiting. Hidden off the coast of Nova Scotia lies a small, tree-covered island shrouded in whispers of treasure and intrigue. Locals spoke of ghostly lights dancing among its oak trees at night, and a chilling curse that warned no treasure would yield until 7 men died in the attempt. Approximately 140 acres of coastal forest and rocky shores, Oak Island might seem unremarkable at a glance, one of many islets in Mahone Bay. But beneath its tranquil surface lies a maze of tunnels and unanswered riddles. Its location along Nova Scotia's Atlantic coast placed it near busy shipping lanes in past centuries, making it an enticing hideaway for anyone with something valuable to conceal. For over 225 years, adventurers have been drawn to Oak Island's enigma. The site centers on what came to be called the Money Pit, a supposed treasure shaft riddled with booby traps and mysteries. Tales of buried pirate gold, lost jewels of Marie Antoinette, and even sacred relics have swirled around the island for generations. At the heart of these legends sits the Money Pit, a deep man-made shaft discovered in 1795 that promised untold riches but has mostly delivered frustration and heartbreak. Generations of treasure hunters have dug into Oak Island's earth, uncovering tantalizing clues, mysterious wooden platforms, carved stones with indecipherable symbols, coconut fibers far from any tropical shore. Yet the main treasure remains elusive. And as the search carries on, the island's name has become synonymous with mystery, fueling endless speculation about pirates, knights, and conspiracies. Even whispers of a deadly curse hang over the hunt, warning that 7 must die before the island's secrets are revealed. To date, 6 souls have been lost, lending an eerie weight to that prophecy. In the narrative that follows, we delve into Oak Island's strange history, the discoveries and disasters, the artifacts and theories that have made it one of the world's most intriguing treasure hunts. The story of Oak Island is one of perseverance and obsession, ingenuity and folly. It's a tale that has spanned centuries without reaching a conclusion, leaving us to wonder whether the island will ever give up its secrets, or whether it will forever remain a puzzle just out of reach. The legend begins in 1795. According to the most famous account, a teenager named Daniel McGinnis rode out to Oak Island one summer day and stumbled upon something odd. A circular depression in the ground beneath a large oak tree, from whose branch hung an old tackle block. Believing this might mark a hidden cache, McGinnis enlisted 2 friends, John Smith and Anthony Vaughn, to help dig. As they excavated, they discovered a layer of flagstones 2 feet down, then a shaft lined with oak logs. Indeed, they reported finding wooden platforms at regular 10-foot intervals as they went. The walls bore pickaxe marks, proof that someone had been there before. With every few yards they dug, the mystery deepened. Why would anyone build a shaft and lay oak timbers every 10 feet? After reaching about 30 feet, 9 meters down, the exhausted diggers abandoned the effort, either due to water seeping in or a creeping sense of dread. The pit they uncovered would soon earn a foreboding name, the Money Pit, at once a hopeful reference to hidden wealth and a bitter joke about the money poured into digging it. Destined to become the focal point of Oak Island's treasure fever, news of the discovery spread slowly. In 1704, a wealthy syndicate from mainland Nova Scotia formed the Onslow Company to take over the dig. Using picks and shovels, they re-excavated the money pit down past the original 30-foot level. Like the boys before them, they found more oak log platforms every 10 feet, as well as layers of strange material. Charcoal, putty, and thick mats of coconut fiber that had no business being in Canadian soil. Around the 90-foot mark, the diggers made an astonishing find. A large flat stone carved with curious symbols. According to later accounts, this inscribed stone bore a cryptic message. One oft-quoted translation claimed it read, "40 feet below, 2 million pounds are buried." Whether the stone truly said this is uncertain. The original stone disappeared from sight years later. But its mere existence was enough to spark imaginations. Before the Onslow crew could dig further, however, disaster struck. The pit suddenly flooded with seawater, rising rapidly to about 60 feet deep. Every attempt to bail or pump out the water failed, as if some hidden channel were feeding the shaft from the ocean. The treasure seekers tried to outsmart the flood by digging a second shaft nearby to intercept whatever tunnel was bringing in the water. But that shaft too flooded and had to be abandoned. By 1805, the Onslow Company gave up, defeated by what seemed like a booby-trapped vault. Decades passed, but the island's siren call persisted. In 1849, a new enterprise called the Truro Company resumed the search with better equipment. They re-cleared the money pit, which had refilled and settled over time, and dug down to 86 feet before water again flooded in. Learning from previous failures, the Truro team deployed a hand-operated pod auger drill to probe below the flooded pit. The drill core brought up intriguing samples. At 98 feet, it hit a layer of spruce wood, then oak, then what was described as metal in pieces, followed by more oak and clay. In one borehole, the drill allegedly retrieved tiny bits of gold chain links, 3 small links resembling those of a pocket watch chain. These fragments were the first glimmer of actual treasure, though far from the jackpot everyone hoped for. The drilling also confirmed that something man-made lay below. Hitting wood at regular intervals and bits of metal suggested hidden chambers or chests. Encouraged, the Truro Company sank new shafts in an effort to bypass the water. One such shaft was dug 109 feet deep, with a lateral tunnel driven toward the money pit, an attempt to reach its presumed treasure chamber from the side. But fate intervened again. Seawater rushed in, flooding the new tunnel as well. The water level in the shafts eerily rose and fell with the ocean tides, proving a direct connection to the sea. Searchers realized that Oak Island's mystery engineers, whoever they were, had built an ingenious flood trap. In fact, when the team dug at Smith's Cove, a beach on the island's shore, they discovered an elaborate flood tunnel system. At Smith's Cove, they uncovered a series of 5 stone-lined box drains converging into a single tunnel, ingeniously packed with coconut fiber to filter seawater. This artificial drainage system fed seawater into the money pit whenever diggers got too deep. Ultimately, the determined efforts of the Truro Company were thwarted. In 1851, after multiple setbacks, including the collapse of the money pit's bottom into a presumed void, and with funds exhausted, the company disbanded without ever retrieving a treasure. They had, however, established the template for the Oak Island saga. Each time diggers got close, the island fought back with flooding and ruinous expense. The treasure fever only grew in the latter half of the 19th century. In 1857, the first published article about Oak Island appeared. A report in the Liverpool transcript of Nova Scotia described treasure hunters digging for Captain Kidd's gold on the island. By 1861, investors had formed the Oak Island Association to renew excavation of the money pit. They re-excavated the original shaft down to about 88 feet, and attempted to prevent flooding by digging auxiliary shafts to block the supposed flood tunnel. But Oak Island was unforgiving. As crews worked to pump out water, a boiler powering the pump exploded with a thunderous blast, fatally scalding one worker, the first recorded death in the treasure hunt. This occurred in 1861 and would later be seen as the opening act of the island's grim curse. The same year, the floor of the money pit collapsed, dropping its contents into what may have been a deeper cavity or booby-trap vault below. Floodwaters rushed in and filled the shaft. Despite heroic efforts, the Oak Island Association could not overcome the island's natural and unnatural defenses. By 1864, with tunnels flooded and funds depleted, the group disbanded. A contemporary local paper dubbed the quest the Oak Island Folly, reflecting growing skepticism about the enterprise. Still, the allure of potential riches kept the legend alive. It wasn't long before fresh fortune seekers tried again. The late 1800s saw renewed activity on Oak Island, this time with more advanced technology. In 1896, a company of treasure hunters armed with steam-powered pumps and steel drills arrived to assault the money pit anew. They sank boreholes around the pit, bringing up samples of wood, blue clay, and even a tiny fragment of parchment, a piece of old paper pulled from 153 feet down, with two letters, either Vi or Y, written in India ink visible on it. This astonishing find suggested that documents or books might lie buried in the pit, fueling theories that priceless manuscripts or records could be entombed alongside any treasure. The same expedition also made a discovery on the island's surface. On the south shore, a surveyor named Captain Welling noticed an arrangement of beach stones forming a large triangle in the grass. Oriented perfectly north, this triangle's apex pointed directly toward the money pit, as if it were a giant arrowhead left by the original builders. Its purpose was unclear, but to many it hinted at an elaborate design. Perhaps the island itself was marked with clues to the treasure's location. With hope soaring, the 1897 crew continued digging and shoring up old shafts. But tragedy struck once more. On March 26, 1897, a worker named Maynard Kaiser was being hoisted out of a shaft when the rope slipped from the pulley. He plummeted into the darkness and was killed, becoming the second fatal casualty of Oak Island's hunt. Despite the setback, searchers pressed on. In 1898, they performed a dramatic dye test to trace the flood tunnels. Red dye was poured into the money pit's water, and soon red stains seeped out into the ocean at 3 separate points around the island's shoreline. This proved that multiple flood channels from different directions were feeding the pit. A sophisticated trap indeed. Yet even with this knowledge, the treasure remained out of reach. By the turn of the 20th century, Oak Island's hidden vault had defeated every attempt to breach it. Its fame, however, had only grown. Newspapers far beyond Nova Scotia ran sensational stories of the elusive treasure and the perplexing island that refused to give it up. Oak Island was becoming a true enigma of the age, a puzzle for engineers, adventurers, and dreamers alike. The dawn of the 20th century brought no end to Oak Island's allure. In 1909, the Old Gold Salvage and Wrecking Company arrived, including among its members a young Franklin D. Roosevelt, future President of the United States. Captain Henry L. Beaudoin led this expedition, employing modern methods like divers and drilling rigs to chase the elusive treasure. They re-excavated the money pit down to 113 feet and scoured its depths. The team found tantalizing evidence of earlier digs, remnants of an old cofferdam at Smith's Cove, tool fragments, and reports of another inscribed stone in Halifax. But no jackpot. Despite their high hopes and Roosevelt's abiding interest, he would follow Oak Island news for the rest of his life. The 1909 team left empty-handed by the end of the year. Oak Island had defeated yet another generation of treasure hunters. The mystery only deepened with time. A sensational newspaper feature in 1928 rekindled public interest and drew new eyes to the money pit mystery. Businessman William Chappell financed a major dig in 1931. His team sank a 12 by 14-foot shaft near the original pit, ultimately reaching a depth of 127 feet. There, they found artifacts buried deep underground: a miner's pick, an axe, an old fluke anchor, and fragments of an oil lamp. These tools confirmed human activity well below ground level, though whether they belonged to the original depositors or to previous searchers was unclear. The disturbance of the pit by decades of digging made it nearly impossible to date the items. No treasure chest was recovered, but the discoveries renewed hope that something valuable lay below. Not long after, steel magnate Gilbert Hedden became fascinated by Oak Island. Between 1935 and 1937, Hedden purchased part of the island and conducted several digs. He traveled to England to investigate a possible clue, a similar mysterious stone he'd read about in a pirate treasure book, suspecting a cipher connection to Oak Island. In 1939, he even met with King George VI to brief him on the island's search status. Hedden threw considerable resources into the hunt, deploying new pumps and cofferdams, but still came away empty-handed. Yet for all his efforts and considerable expense, he too failed to locate the treasure. The island yielded only more questions and curious scraps of evidence. Even as official expeditions paused, Oak Island continued to spark intrigue. In 1949, workmen on the nearby mainland at Mahone Bay stumbled upon a curious sight while digging a well. Just a few feet down, they struck a layer of stones, then hit logs of spruce and oak, some of them charred. The immediate suspicion was that they had unearthed another money pit. News of this find flared up briefly, though ultimately it appeared to be a natural sinkhole and not a man-made treasure shaft. It was a reminder that the Oak Island mystery had a way of popping up in unexpected places. By the mid-20th century, Oak Island's enigma was so entrenched in popular imagination that some wondered if it would ever be solved. In 1959, a new chapter began when Robert Restall, a bold treasure hunter, moved to the island with his family and signed a contract to search. For 6 years, Restall and his team toiled with pickaxes and pumps, uncovering bits of evidence along the way. They discovered more flood tunnel openings, built cofferdams at Smith's Cove to try to block the seawater, and reportedly even found old Spanish coins washing up on the beach. Restall's focus was on defeating the booby traps. He spent years digging and trying to plug the flood channels. But on August 17, 1965, tragedy struck in the most devastating way. While working at the bottom of a new 27-foot shaft, Restall was overcome by noxious hydrogen sulfide fumes. His 18-year-old son went down the shaft to rescue him, only to collapse as well. 2 workers, Cyril Hiltz and Andy DeMont, rushed in to help, and all 4 men perished in that shaft. In an instant, Oak Island claimed 4 lives, bringing the hunt's death toll to 6. The horrific accident cast a dark pall over the island's quest and seemed to fulfill the grim curse prophecy, at least in part. If anything, the grim events of the 1960s only reinforced Oak Island's aura: costly, dangerous, but impossible to abandon. In 1967, a new consortium called Triton Alliance led by seasoned treasure hunter Dan Blankenship and business partner David Tobias, took up the quest. Over the next decades, they applied modern engineering to this old mystery. In 1971, Triton drilled a new deep shaft, known as Borehole 10X, lining it with steel caisson pipe, down to about 235 feet. At the bottom, their underwater cameras captured eerie footage in a flooded cavity, blurry shapes that some interpreted as wooden chests, tools, even what looked like possible human remains. Though tantalizing, the images were inconclusive, and attempts to verify them by sending divers down were unsuccessful. The shaft was narrow and treacherous, and it ultimately collapsed. It was redug years later to 181 feet, but again abandoned due to lack of funds and safety concerns. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, Triton Alliance continued the search, sinking dozens of boreholes and uncovering bits of evidence. They retrieved numerous pieces of metal from deep underground, some coated in a hard, cement-like crust from centuries undersea, along with hand-forged links of chain, wire nails, and other debris. Testing indicated the metal was old, low in carbon, consistent with pre-industrial iron. They also found bits of old wood and even concrete deep in the money pit area, yet no treasure hoard materialized. By the late 1980s, legal disputes among Triton's partners and financial exhaustion brought active operations to a halt. The Oak Island search went relatively quiet for a time, though Dan Blankenship continued living on the island and never gave up hope. In the 21st century, the torch passed to new hands and new technology. A group of investors, including the Blankenship family and partners from Michigan, formed Oak Island Tours, Inc., and gradually took ownership of most of the island in the mid-2000s. With improved sonar, digital mapping, and heavy drilling rigs, the hunt entered a high-tech era. The new team deployed ground-penetrating radar and seismic surveys to scan below ground, and they built large steel cofferdams to temporarily drain sections of the shoreline for excavation. These efforts soon uncovered more intriguing clues. On the eastern end of the island, searchers discovered a medieval-style lead cross near Smith's Cove, believed to potentially date to the 13th century. In the uplands, metal detecting and digging turned up an ornate brooch adorned with a red rhodolite garnet that experts judged to be at least 400 to 500 years old. Pieces of chain and old iron spikes emerged from the swamp. A Spanish copper coin, an 8 maravedis, dated 1600, was found in the swamp mud, remarkably similar to another maravedis coin dated 1598 that a student had found on the beach back in 1965. In one deep drill hole, the team brought up fragments of human bone from about 170 feet down. DNA tests indicated one bone was from a person of European ancestry and another from a person of Middle Eastern heritage. The implication that two individuals from opposite sides of the world might have been buried or hidden together deep under Oak Island set imaginations ablaze. To top it off, that lead cross found near the cove was said to closely resemble a carving left by the Knights Templar in a French prison in the 1300s, a potential Templar connection that conspiracy theorists relish. Each new discovery, from the ancient bones to the Crusader-era cross, has added another layer to Oak Island's mystique. Are these pieces of some grand treasure cache, or remnants of previous searchers, or evidence of something else entirely? The answers remain elusive, locked beneath the island's earth, tantalizingly out of reach. Today, the excavation continues with an intensity never seen before. What began as a crude hole under a tree is now a full-scale archaeological and engineering quest that has attracted global attention. The island even hosts regular tours for curious visitors, allowing people to see firsthand the money pit area, the old shafts, and the rusted machinery left behind. Tangible reminders of the decades of effort expended in pursuit of a legend. Yet Oak Island still refuses to surrender its final secrets. After so many shafts sunk and so much earth moved, the question remains: will the next dig finally strike the vault, or is the money pit legend nothing more than a brilliant deception? For now, the modern searchers press on, driven by technology, yes, but also by the same hope and treasure hunters' madness that first took root here in 1795. Key artifacts and clues have emerged over the years, adding pieces to Oak Island's puzzle and fueling speculation about what could be buried below. The inscribed stone. Discovered around the 90-foot depth of the money pit by early diggers, this flat stone was reportedly carved with strange symbols. One translation claimed it promised riches 40 feet below. The physical stone later disappeared from history, reportedly used as a Halifax bookbindery's hearthstone before vanishing around 1919. But its legend endures as a hint that the original builders left a coded message in the pit. Whether the inscription was genuine or a later hoax remains a matter of debate. Coconut fiber. Thick mats of coconut coir were found buried both in the money pit and on the beaches, especially at Smith's Cove. Coconut palms are not native to Nova Scotia, yet carbon dating showed some fibers to be many centuries old. Many believe these fibers were used to create the massive filter bed for the flood tunnel system, evidence of advanced planning by whoever built the booby traps. Others have speculated the fiber might have been ship's packing material or rope that washed ashore, but its deliberate placement in the drains seems likely. Wooden platforms. Beginning with the first tier of oak logs found at 10 feet down, searchers consistently encountered oak and sometimes spruce timbers embedded in the walls of the money pit at regular intervals. These suggest the shaft was deliberately constructed layer by layer, a strong sign of human design, not a natural sinkhole. Moreover, wood retrieved from deep in the pit has been dated to centuries before the pit's discovery, some samples possibly from the 1200s AD, indicating either an unexpectedly early construction date or reuse of old timber by the builders. Metal fragments and chain links. Drill borings in the 19th century brought up bits of metal from deep below, including what appeared to be 3 small links of a gold chain. Later digs and spoils have yielded hand-forged nails, a rusted metal spike, and even a thin piece of brass at depths around 170 feet. Notably, many metal bits were encrusted with a cement-like crust from long burial, and metallurgical tests showed low carbon content, consistent with pre-1800s iron. Such finds hint that machinery or chests might lie below, or at least that earlier searchers broke apart something metal in the depths. To this day, that lone parchment scrap remains a compelling clue that something other than gold might lie below. Bone fragments. Recent excavations in the money pit area yielded fragments of human bone approximately 160 feet underground. Analysis revealed that one bone came from a person of European ancestry and another from a person of Middle Eastern ancestry. These bones, found so far below the surface, hint that multiple individuals, perhaps diggers or depositors, were present during the original construction or early treasure burial events. The fact that people of different origins may be part of Oak Island's story has fueled speculation of diverse groups, from naval crews to Templar Knights, having a hand in whatever is hidden there. Stone triangle and other carved markers. On the south shore of the island, a formation of small boulders was discovered in 1897, forming an equilateral triangle pointing north. The so-called stone triangle aligned perfectly with the money pit, as though deliberately placed to indicate its location. Several other carved rocks and boulders have been noted around the island over the years, including a large cross-shaped arrangement of stones. While their meanings remain unclear, many believe these markers are part of an elaborate navigational puzzle laid down by whoever hid the treasure. Theories and speculation have proliferated in the absence of a definitive treasure. The lack of concrete answers hasn't stopped people from imagining what lies beneath Oak Island. Over the years, a host of hypotheses have been proposed, some grounded in historical research, others veering into the fantastical. Here are a few of the prominent theories. Pirate treasure. The classic explanation is that pirates, perhaps Captain Kidd or Blackbeard, buried a hoard of ill-gotten gold and jewels on Oak Island, designing the money pit's traps to keep it safe. Oak Island's coastal location and secluded nature would make it an ideal spot for pirates to hide treasure. While there's no direct evidence tying any famous pirate to the island, the pirate lore was among the first theories and remains popular. Marie Antoinette's jewels. Another legend posits that Oak Island holds treasures far more regal, the missing jewels and perhaps other valuables of Queen Marie Antoinette. Supposedly, during the French Revolution, the Queen's jewels were smuggled out of France and eventually hidden on Oak Island by agents or loyalists. This theory arises from the historical fact that a French ship, the La Formidable, was in the region in the 1780s, and some have loosely connected it to the island. Though romantic, this theory lacks hard evidence, but the idea of royal jewels beneath Oak Island has its allure. Knights Templar and holy relics. One of the more elaborate theories suggests that the Knights Templar, a medieval order rumored to possess treasures like the Holy Grail or Ark of the Covenant, secreted sacred relics on Oak Island. Proponents note supposed connections between Nova Scotia and Scottish Freemasons, who some link to Templar descendants. The lead cross found on the island, resembling a Templar carving, poured fuel on this idea. If true, Oak Island's treasure could be not gold or jewels, but religious artifacts of immense significance. This theory is steeped in mystery and speculation, but it has captured the imaginations of many who see Oak Island as part of a grand occult history. Spanish or British military gold. Some researchers speculate the money pit might be a cache of lost military pay or plunder. One idea suggests Spanish sailors, perhaps from a wrecked galleon, buried a large stash of gold or silver, using their knowledge of mining to construct the pit. Another posits British soldiers or Royal Navy engineers hid a war chest there during the American Revolution. These theories consider Oak Island's strategic location and the engineering skill involved. Perhaps a military unit could have dug the pit to hide payroll or valuables, intending to retrieve it later, and never did. Freemason rituals, or a hoax. Given the mysterious symbols and the engineering marvel, some have suggested the money pit was not meant to hide treasure at all, but rather was a secret initiation project by Freemasons or some other esoteric society. In this view, the entire pit could be an elaborate fraternal secret, built as a test or symbol, never intended to be opened. A related skeptical take is that the money pit legend is itself a grand hoax, that early diggers salted the site with bits of treasure or mysterious objects to attract investment and spin a good yarn, and the saga snowballed from there. Treasure already found. A final theory whispers that the treasure, whatever it was, may have been found long ago, and that the public hunt has been allowed to continue as a distraction. Some note that the early 1800s searchers or perhaps an unrecorded expedition, could have quietly recovered the riches and left the pit empty, with later searchers merely finding the remnants of their digging. It's a cynical theory that everyone has been chasing a treasure that isn't even there anymore, but it cannot be entirely disproved. 1795. Teenager Daniel McGinnis, with friends John Smith and Anthony Vaughan, discovers a circular depression and an old tackle block hanging from an oak tree on Oak Island. Their initial digging finds a layer of flagstones and oak log platforms at 10-foot intervals down to about 30 feet, but no treasure. The effort is abandoned, but the legend is born. 1804 to 1805. The Onslow Company, a syndicate of treasure hunters, takes over excavation. They pick up where the boys left off and dig down to 90 feet. Like the original diggers, they encounter oak platforms every 10 feet, plus layers of charcoal, putty, and coconut fiber, a tropical material, mixed in the soil. At about 90 feet, they unearth a large inscribed stone slab with mysterious symbols. Shortly after, their attempt is foiled when the pit floods suddenly, forcing them to abandon the dig. Not realizing the island's booby-trap design, the Onslow Company is unable to bail out the water and ceases operations in 1805. 1849 to 1851. The Truro Company, armed with better resources, re-excavates the money pit and drills exploratory boreholes. The drill brings up wood, metal bits, and possibly gold chain links. Some accounts claim even traces of gold dust were seen in the cores, from roughly 100+ feet down. The diggers also discover the flood tunnel inlet at Smith's Cove, 5 stone box drains packed with coconut fiber filtering seawater, and realize the pit is intentionally booby-trapped. Attempts to dam or shut off the flood tunnels fail. Ultimately, an exhausted Truro Company gives up by 1851 after running out of money. 1857. The first published news story about the money pit appears in the Liverpool transcript of Nova Scotia. It mentions locals digging for Captain Kidd's legendary treasure on Oak Island, bringing the mystery to a wider audience and sparking public fascination. 1861. The Oak Island Association renews digging. They widen the original pit and sink new shafts in hopes of intercepting the flood tunnel. In doing so, they trigger the collapse of the pit's bottom into a suspected natural cavern or booby-trap cavity beneath. Seawater floods in anew. The same year sees the first fatality. A boiler explodes while pumping water, killing 1 worker. This is the first of Oak Island's legendary 7 deaths. Work is hampered by flooding and accidents. 1866 to 1867. New treasure syndicates, e.g. the El Dorado Company, attempt to continue the excavation with improved pumps. However, flooding continues to defeat each effort. By 1867, these groups also run out of funds and abandon the search. Skepticism begins to grow locally, with an 1867 article dubbing the quest the Oak Island Folly, and doubting any treasure is really there. 1893 to 1899. The Oak Island Treasure Company, led by Frederick Blair and partners, undertakes extensive digs. In 1897, they drill out a tiny piece of parchment from deep underground, 153-foot level, with letters VII on it, suggesting possible documents below. They also discover the stone triangle pointer on the south shore and conduct the famous red dye test in 1898, which reveals 3 separate flood tunnel exits around the island. Progress is again stopped by flooding. In March 1897, Oak Island claims its second life when worker Maynard Kaiser falls to his death while being hoisted out of a shaft. 1909, the Old Gold Salvage and Wrecking Company arrives, including a young Franklin D. Roosevelt. They re-excavate to 113 feet and employ divers to inspect the flooded pit. They find evidence of previous efforts, e.g. remnants of an 1850 cofferdam at Smith's Cove, but no new treasure. Baudouin, the leader, examines the inscribed stone in Halifax and casts doubt on the inscription's authenticity. The group departs in November 1909 with little to show, though Roosevelt remains fascinated by Oak Island for the rest of his life. 1928 to 1931. A surge of interest follows a 1928 newspaper story. Businessman William Chappell sinks a new shaft in 1931. At 127 feet, he finds artifacts: a miner's pick, an axe, a fluke anchor, and bits of an oil lamp. These tools verify past human activity deep underground, though it's unclear if they belonged to original depositors or earlier search parties. The area is so disturbed by prior digs that dating the items is difficult. No treasure is recovered, but the finds renew hopes. 1935 to 1939. Steel magnate Gilbert Hedden becomes obsessed with Oak Island. He purchases part of the island and conducts several digs, 1935 to 1936. Without success, Hedden travels to England to investigate a possible clue in a pirate treasure book, believing a secret cipher might connect to Oak Island. In 1939, he even briefs King George VI on the status of the search. Despite deploying new pumps and cofferdams, Hedden finds no trove. By the outbreak of World War II, major search activity pauses. 1949. A presumed second money pit is accidentally found on the Nova Scotia mainland. Workmen digging a well near Mahone Bay strike a layer of flagstones, then oak logs at shallow depth, eerily similar to Oak Island's pit structure. Excitement flares that another treasure shaft was found, but investigation concludes it's likely a natural sinkhole with some old debris. It serves as a reminder of how Oak Island's story can capture imaginations, sometimes falsely. 1959 to 1965. Robert Restall, an experienced diver and treasure hunter, moves to Oak Island to personally take charge of the search. With his wife and children, he lives on the island and doggedly works to drain flood tunnels and excavate new shafts. Restall discovers coins and tools and builds a dam at Smith's Cove to block the ocean. On August 17, 1965, tragedy strikes. While working in a 27-foot shaft, Restall is overcome by toxic gas. His 18-year-old son and two workers, Cyril Hiltz and Andy DeMont, enter the shaft one after another to attempt rescue, and all four men suffocate. The horrific accident brings the death toll on Oak Island to 6. That same year, a Reader's Digest article about Oak Island's mystery captures worldwide attention, renewing public fascination. 1965 to 1966. In the wake of the Restall tragedy, geologist Robert Dunfield takes over. He brings in heavy machinery, including a 70-ton crane, and in a drastic move, he excavates a gigantic open-pit mine where the money pit once stood. Dunfield's operation digs roughly 100 feet wide and 134 feet deep, removing an enormous volume of soil. He even builds a causeway to the island to transport equipment. Despite this brute force approach, which obliterates many historical clues, no treasure is found. Dunfield's lease expires in 1966, and he departs, having spent vast sums to achieve little. Oak Island's treasure remains elusive. 1967. A new partnership forms between Dan Blankenship, David Tobias, and others, eventually called Triton Alliance. They purchase most of the island and begin a long, systematic treasure hunt that lasts into the 1990s. 1971, Triton Alliance drills borehole 10x to 235 feet and lowers cameras. They record blurry images that some interpret as wooden cribbing, chests, tools, and possible human remains in a deep cavern. No confirmed artifacts are retrieved from 10X at the time, and the shaft later collapses, to be re-excavated decades later. 1970s to 1990s, Triton Alliance conducts extensive drilling and excavation programs. They uncover numerous artifacts, fragments of old metal, chain, nails, and wood, even reports of concrete or stone vaulting at depth. In 1976, Triton recovers a tiny piece of parchment with writing and a shred of blue cloth from drill cores, echoing earlier discoveries. Legal battles between Triton partners and landowners like Fred Nolan slow progress. By 1994, active digging halts amid litigation and lack of funds. 2005 to present, Oak Island Tours Inc., led by new investors, including the Lagina brothers and Dan Blankenship, takes up the mantle. The treasure hunt is revitalized with advanced technology and significant funding. Massive drills, cofferdams, and excavations reveal new clues in the 2010s. The laid cross, ancient coins, the 500-year-old garnet brooch, human bone fragments, and more. The search is documented and followed by enthusiasts worldwide. Yet, as of the mid-2020s, the ultimate treasure remains unfound, and the money pit continues to guard its mystery. What really lies beneath Oak Island? Is it pirate gold, secret documents, sacred relics, or nothing at all? After so many years, we still have more questions than answers. Will Oak Island eventually give up its secrets? Perhaps the next swing of a shovel or the next turn of a drill bit will finally strike that long-sought prize. Or perhaps the true treasure of Oak Island is the journey itself, the ingenuity, camaraderie, and hope forged in the search. After all this time, Oak Island remains as enigmatic as ever. Generations have come and gone without cracking its code, and the island stubbornly guards whatever lies beneath. More than 220 years of digging have failed to produce the fabled treasure. Not a single chest of gold or jewel has been conclusively found. Instead, what Oak Island has produced is a legacy of dashed hopes and immense expense. Millions of dollars sunk into digs, shafts, and drills with no payoff, making it perhaps the most prolonged and costly treasure hunt ever. And yet, the evidence of something engineered underground is undeniable. The oak platforms, the flood tunnels, the inscribed stone, the foreign coconut fiber, all suggest a grand design at work. It is this contrast, no confirmed treasure, but countless hints of one, that keeps the Oak Island legend alive. Today, the search continues with sophisticated technology and an almost fanatical determination. Oak Island has transformed from a local curiosity into a world-famous quest, drawing in everyone from engineers to history enthusiasts. The island's story has been chronicled in books, documentaries, and weekly television updates. Viewers and visitors alike experience the excitement of each potential discovery right alongside the treasure hunters. The old curse says that 7 must die before the treasure reveals itself. So far, 6 intrepid men have paid that price. Whether or not one believes in such curses, the Oak Island saga has certainly exacted a heavy toll in human life, effort, and wealth. And still, the island holds its peace. In the end, one can only ask, was there ever a treasure at all? Or has everyone on Oak Island been chasing shadows in a pit of mud and quicksand? Pirate chests or natural sinkholes, brilliant engineering or elaborate hoax, the answers remain tantalizingly out of reach. One thing is certain: as long as Oak Island keeps its secret, the allure will endure. So long as even the faintest hope of treasure glitters beneath those windswept shores, new dreamers will come, spades and maps in hand, ready to challenge the money pit and add their chapter to its legend. The Oak Island mystery lives on, unanswered, unrelenting, and as beguiling as ever.